The biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. In general, we are all much smarter than we think we are, but much less smart, dumber than we think we are, by a lot.
This is the apparent pattern. The rate of change of technology is incredibly fast. It is outpacing our ability to understand it. Well, I'm not sure, is that good or bad? I don't know. What increases the probability of consciousness of continuing into the future? I think we should not take it for granted that consciousness will continue, because we have not encountered any aliens. Where are the aliens? This is the Fermi paradox. This is one of the most important questions. How come we've not found any aliens? There's people out there who think we've found aliens. Trust me, I would know. We have not. Okay. People ask me, you've been to Area 51. Okay, please. SpaceX actually has Area 59. It's even better, 8 better than 51. So, among the set of actions we can take that are likely to increase the scope and scale of consciousness such that we are better able to understand the nature of the universe, one of those actions is to become a multi-planet species or ensure that life is multi-planetary. Not because I think something that, it's not from the standpoint of it just being an escape hatch, but there's a certain probability that is irreducible that something may happen to Earth. Despite our best intentions, despite everything we try to do, there's a probability at a certain point that some either external force or some internal unforced error causes such that it can no longer extend to another planet. It's hard to say, like let me put it another way. This is the first time in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth that it's been possible to extend life beyond Earth. Before this, it was not possible. How long will this window be open? It may be open for a long time, or it may be open for a short time. I think it would be wise to assume that it is open for a short time. And then let us secure the future of consciousness, such that the light of consciousness is not extinguished. And we should try to do this as quickly as possible. The first thing we should assume is that we are very dumb, and we can definitely make things smarter than ourselves. I mean, they didn't used to be humans, right? So our early civilization was very primitive. We didn't have any technology really. We're just like running around, trying to not get eaten, or just trying to survive a winter. Now we have like heating, and we grow food. This is all new stuff. So, things have obviously gotten way more smarter than the past, way smarter. So that's going to continue. We're not the last step in evolution. So the most important thing, like I said, the most important mistake I see smart people making is assuming that they're smart. Well, computers actually are already much smarter than people on so many dimensions. We just keep moving the goalposts. So we used to think, like, for example, being good at chess was an example of a smart human. And then Kasparov was crushed by Deep Blue in '97. That was a long time ago. 22 years. I mean, right now your cell phone could crush the world champion at chess, literally. Go used to be thought of as something that humans were better at than computers. Then Lee Sedol was beaten 4-1 by AlphaZero. Then a new version of AlphaZero, I should say AlphaGo. AlphaGo beat Lee Sedol 4-1. Then there's AlphaZero. AlphaZero crushed AlphaGo 100-0. Now it's just pointless because it just keeps playing itself. Humans are trying to play a computer Go is like trying to fight Zeus. It's not going to work. Hopeless. We're hopelessly inadequate. In terms of rendering, basically, there's just a smaller and smaller corner of intellectual pursuits that humans are better than computers, and that every year it gets smaller and smaller, and soon we will be far, far surpassed in every single way, guaranteed. Or civilization will end. Those are the two possibilities.
Humans have been the smartest creature on Earth for a long time.
and that is going to change with what's typically called artificial general intelligence. So this is, say, an AI that is smarter than a human in every way, could even simulate a human. You know, this is something we should be concerned about. I think there should be government oversight of AI developments, especially super advanced AI. It's just, we generally agree that this should have government oversight to ensure that the public safety is taken care of. The advent of artificial general intelligence is called the singularity for a reason, because just like a black hole, which is a singularity, it's difficult to predict what will happen. So it's not as though the advent of AGI is necessarily bad, but it's bad as one of the possible outcomes. I think we should have a government oversight, just like we have government oversight and regulation of cars and aircraft and food and pharmaceuticals. These are all, there are regulators that oversee these developments to ensure public safety. And I think digital superintelligence would also be potentially a public safety risk. And so it should be, I think it's very important for regulators to keep an eye on that. I think everyone should own their own data. Like, individuals should own their data. And it certainly shouldn't be tricked by some terms and conditions of a website and suddenly you don't own your data. That's crazy. Who reads those terms and conditions anyway? Yeah, we should somebody should be keeping an eye. We can't have the inmates running the asylum here.
But I think that sustainable energy is also obviously really important. It's tautological. If it's not sustainable, it's unsustainable. Well, I think that the core technologies are there with the wind, solar, with batteries. The fundamental problem is that there's an unpriced externality in the cost of CO2.
If carbon generation keeps accelerating and we keep getting increase in the Keeling curve, the CO2 possibility in the atmosphere, and if we keep going and if we're complacent, then I think we could. There's some risk of sort of nonlinear climate change. So that's why we've seen the CO2 possibility be fairly linear on our time scale, although it looks very exponential on geologic time scale. But there are certain potential nonlinear events, like if we raise the temperature to the point where we melt the Siberian traps or something like that. There's just a massive amount of sort of frozen dead plant and animal matter in Siberia. There's potentially trapped gases deep in the ocean. If the ocean warms, it could be released. So these are just risks that are not wise to take. And since we know that long term we're going to have renewable energy anyway, because we'll run out of oil and gas. It's not going to last forever. So we know where this ends up. This has to end up with renewable, sustainable energy. It's tautological. It's really just a question of, do we try to get there sooner or later? Why run the? How long do you want to run this experiment? People sometimes think I'm sort of like, I'm kind of in the middle of the spectrum. I think if we stopped CO2 production today, which obviously we could not do without civilization coming to a grinding halt, and mass starvation and all sorts of terrible things happening. So we could not stop CO2 generation today. But I think at the sort of 400, possibly even 500 ppm level, I think it's probably okay. But if as the world industrializes and we're sort of at 8 billion people, get to 9 billion people, have a lot more industrial output per person, you can see at what might be okay at sort of 400 or 500 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere might become quite dire at 1,000. And the trend is certainly in that direction if we don't do anything about it. So that's why I think it's just probably an unwise experiment to run. Even if you think that this is why I think it should be a compelling argument to even those who would assign a low probability to increased CO2 causing problems. Like, let's say you think it's 99.9% likely that that adding all the CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere is going to be fine. So you're saying there's a 0.1% chance of disaster. Well, there's only one. So right now we're going to get one planet. Even a 0.1% chance of disaster, why run that risk? That's crazy. So, so I think what's likely to play out is that we will continue to add a lot more CO2 to the ocean's atmosphere, and also, ocean acidification, as you know, is also an issue. It's you don't want to sort of add carbonic acid to the oceans.
Ideally, the AI. There's somebody who I can't remember his name, but had a good suggestion for what the optimization of the AI should be. What's its utility function? Well, I like the definition of the AI should try to maximize the freedom of action of humanity. Maximize the freedom of action. Maximize freedom, essentially. I like that definition.